So, welcome everyone. This is the Medicaid Purchase Plan, or also known as MAPP overview. Our presenter today is Michelle Furr. She is a healthcare program and policy analyst advanced with the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. And her focus really is on elderly, blind, and disabled, or what we would call EBD, and long term care. So, we really appreciate that she's here with us today to offer her expertise on some of the new changes with MAPP. A couple of logistics, just to let everybody know, is that besides the presenters, everybody else is muted. And the reason we do that is just to really cut back on any background noise that might come in. So if you do have a question today, the best thing to do is to enter it into the chat box. And so if you look down, those of you online, in the bottom right hand corner, there's the chat box. The best thing to do here is actually, when you are going to send a chat, to send it to all panelists, just because sometimes if you send it to Michelle only, she might be focused on the presentation, versus if I see it, then I can ask the question out loud. So please, questions into the chat box. Anybody who is having trouble with hearing or the sound or anything coming through, there is a phone number as well. And so that was in the registration link. I did also include that in the chat box as well at the very top, the phone number you could call if you needed to do that. And then finally, a couple of things, because I'm sure we'll get questions about this presentation is being recorded, and so the archived version will show up on Covering Wisconsin's website. I'll include that link in the chat box, but on Covering Wisconsin's website, we have a tab for assister materials, or the training will be on there. And then the last thing is that Michelle has said that we could share copies of this presentation, this PowerPoint slide, after the training, as well as some complementary materials that kind of go with the training. And so I have all of those. The people who joined by internet today, I do have your login, and so I'll have your email address. I'll send those all to you. Anybody who's joining by phone or listening to this as a recording after the fact, you can always contact me at Covering Wisconsin. And so my name is Jenny Appleby. I'm with Covering Wisconsin and the Milwaukee Enrollment Network. So you can get in touch with us at Covering Wisconsin. My direct email is jappleby, APPLEBY, at wisc.edu. So you can always contact me if you have any questions about trying to find where the recording is or the materials that you need. So welcome again. I know a few people just joined, so just to reiterate, if you have questions, please enter those into the chat box. And with that, I will turn it over to Michelle. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I'm really glad to be here. I appreciate y'all having me to talk about MAPP. We have a bunch of changes, as everybody knows, and then we also thought this would be a great opportunity to just talk about some of the, in general, the policies, but also a few, sort of complicated policies like independence accounts. And so I elaborate a little bit on those during this presentation. I hope that that is helpful. So we'll just get started. This is our overview. Here we go. All right. So like Jenny said, we have some sort of complementary materials. We'll have the slide deck. We'll have a notes handout, and that's really just slides with blank. And so if you wanted to transpose, I guess, whatever notes you take today. Also, Operations Memo 2012, which is the changes in the MAPP program operations memo. Excuse me. I also included a copy of the proof of in-kind income form, which we'll talk about, and I will also share on the screen in a little bit. Super excited about this form, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then also there's a premium examples document, and I just tried to give, I think there are just 4 examples in the premium examples document, so it's a short document, but I tried to give you folks just examples of what somebody was paying with the old rules with premiums and what they might be paying with the new rules, and explain the calculation in the document. So I hope that y'all find that helpful.
I'm sorry to interrupt. There is a slight echo. Maybe hang up that phone. We had the phone as just a backup in case if the internet cut out, but I think it is giving a little bit of feedback. So thank you.
Okay, Jenny, is that better? Check, check, check. I've hung it up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
anybody else has any complaints about the sound or whatnot, please go ahead and enter that into the chat to let me know. But it sounds good on my end now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jenny. Okay, so I'm just going to give a little bit of background. We put these new policies into place August 1st. Substantial policy changes to MAPP because of state statute changes that happened a little bit ago. And these policy changes, I know everybody's super excited about them. We were really excited to put them into place. They're specifically intended to support employment and positive health outcomes for individuals who have disabilities by making premium policies more equitable, which I know we're all excited about, and then eliminating disincentives to working. I know everybody has heard about the premium cliff, and so somebody is working, they're paying a premium, they have an increase in income that's not very much, and all of a sudden their premium is a lot more. And I know that we had some members paying some tremendous premiums, so we're really excited about these changes. All right, I do want to just pause and say we're in a public health emergency, as everybody knows, and just remind everybody that while I'm going over the policies that we did put into place and the current policies, right now, temporarily, MAPP premiums are suspended because of COVID-19. They'll be suspended at least until the end of the quarter that the federal public health emergency ends. So right now, because it's set to end in, I think, October, end of October or mid-end of October, that means that MAPP members will not be asked to pay premiums until January 1st, 2021. That's the earliest that members and applicants would be asked to pay that. So just wanted to reiterate that when we're talking about premiums, the information is accurate, but nobody's paying premiums right now. Also, I hope everybody knows, but if you don't, the work requirement has been not suspended. We've basically granted everybody that needed one a temporary work exemption due to COVID-19 during the public health emergency. So right now we know that people are maybe not able to work at all, or are having a lot of trouble meeting the work requirement, even in kind, right? Because perhaps somebody did something in someone's home, and with the emergency, they don't want the person in their home. So we've just granted a temporary work exemption. So just a reminder on that, or new information if you didn't know it. All right, so now that we have the public health emergency out of the way, I'm gonna go through the basics of MAPP. So we have MAPP eligibility requirements that we always had. You have to meet the non-financial Medicaid requirements, have to be at least 18 years old, but there's no maximum age limit. You have to be determined disabled, presumptively disabled, or MAPP disabled by the Disability Determination Bureau, the DDB, regardless of age. So unlike other EBD programs, let's say that you are 70, for MAPP, you would still also have to have a disability determination. And you also have to be working or participating in HEC to meet another MAPP requirement. All right, let's talk about meeting the work requirement, because there are several ways to meet it. Someone could be employed, and that means working for someone else, and we'll go into detail in a minute. Someone could be self-employed, working for themselves. Someone could be exchanging in-kind services for something of value, in kind. And somebody could be participating in the HEC program, the Health and Employment Counseling Program. Right. So let's talk about members who are employed. Members can be paid a salary or wages by a person or entity. And when you're employed, that means that this person who's paying your salary or wages is reporting that employment to DWD. They're paying the appropriate unemployment taxes to DWD. And Sue works for a local diner. She gets a paycheck. It shows how her taxes and Social Security withholding are deducted for her. And then the things that are paid by her employer. Sue's employed, someone else pays her, someone else pays into like unemployment for her. Then we have self-employment. Self-employment is when someone is getting income directly from that person's own business rather than salary or wages from an employer. And we have some examples of that. So Louisa does some accounting for a local construction business. Don't do any taking out of taxes or pay any unemployment tax to DWD. Louisa has to do all that paperwork for herself, file with the IRS to make sure she's paying the appropriate taxes. She's self-employed. Another example, we have Tony. He watches his neighbor's kids twice a month, and the neighbor pays Tony $100 a month in cash, not in goods and services. Tony's self-employed. That's another example of self-employed. So these are two examples where Tony is working for his neighbor, Louisa is working for a local construction business, but because the employers don't pay taxes, don't report that, Tony and Louisa are both self-employed. All right, now we've got meeting the work requirement through in-kind work. We have in-kind benefits. I just wanted to kind of go over this because I know there's some confusion. From income maintenance workers, and I've gone over this a lot with them, and I think that all the confusion's been cleared up, and I wanted to go over it with y'all too, and I just want everybody to be on the same page with the in-kind definition and examples. So in-kind benefits are regular, predictable, they're received in return for a service or product, and they're valued at a minimum of an hour of minimum wage per month. Sorry if y'all heard a little noise. Up to the prevailing wage for the work being done. So in-kind benefits are not cash. So we had that example before that was a self-employment example. It was Tony being paid money by a neighbor. That is self-employment. In-kind benefits are when the person who's doing the work is being given something of value, but it's not going to be cash, okay? And I've got some examples here. They're coming. So I'm going to show you the form, I think, first. So we developed a new form. I am so excited about this form. I know that in the past, when a member reported in-kind work, they would get, the system would send them out an employment form, which is not helpful when a person's trying to verify their in-kind work. So we have changed that procedure now. The system is going to send this new form out. Also available on the forms library, if you would like to give it to anybody to help them verify in-kind work. So we made it very simple. We made it only ask the things that needed to be asked. So I hope y'all find it helpful. I'm going to show you a copy of it in just a second, and it will also be included in those materials. So I also want to say this. Sometimes there's miscommunication, I feel, about this. So you're hearing it from me. Members are not required to use this form. This is just trying to help people because we do need all the information on this form. So a member could use this form to verify their in-kind work. They could also use a letter from that person, but the in-kind form is probably good for everybody to look at, even if they weren't going to use it, because it shows you exactly what we need. We need everything that's on that form. All right. So I'm going to share this form. Y'all bear with me. There we go. Okay. All right, I'm going to assume you can see it. Somebody will let me know if you can't see it.
We can.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Judy. Okay, so here is the new in-kind form. And it talks about, like all of our forms do, talks about the ways that you can give income into this form. And it says on the form, this form is not mandatory, but the information included on it must be included in whatever form of proof you submit. So we're trying to make it very clear this is not the only way that people can verify. So we have that little introductory information. I'm going to scroll down. So we have section 1 here. We've got the name and case number of the member. We ask for the date that they started the in-kind work. We ask what kind of in-kind work they're doing. Well, Crystal, I do see your comment. Just 1 second. We ask what they get. So we ask, what do you do for work? and we ask, what do you get in exchange for the work? Because it does have to be something of value. Volunteer work, volunteer hours do not meet the work requirement for MAPP. Excuse me. So we need to know what you're exchanging, what the exchange is. We ask for the person who is giving the member the thing of value. And I'm gonna scroll down. And then we have the person who is giving the member the thing of value in exchange for the member working. We have that person is going to sign this form and date it and then print the name. So it's a pretty straightforward form. We really try to make it the minimum information. Okay, I'm going to quickly check the comment box. Let me start this. Okay, all right. So, Crystal, this is in the DHS Forms library, and I've just forgotten the number of the form. If you look up in kind, it will be in there. And I believe this is in, okay, yeah, check by number. I found it by number this morning, Crystal. I'm sorry, so Crystal said she just checked and couldn't find it. Hold on, I will.
We can provide that information after the presentation as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I will go ahead and put it in the chat box as well, because I did just find
Thank
it.
you.
And it looks like
thank you so much.
yeah, and it is in Spanish and Hmong as well. So the way that I found it, in case you're listening to this archived, was just typing in proof of in-kind hours. And I looked and I saw that the number was the F-02577. And so that just by Googling that, it did take me directly to that DHS page. So.
All right, thank you, Jenny. Okay. So let's continue. Okay, so now we have some examples of in-kind work. We have Nick walking his neighbor's dog for an hour a month. That's in exchange for a monthly ride to the doctor. So the in-kind work for Nick is the hour a month he walks the dog. He's not a bonded dog walker. He doesn't have any experience as a dog trainer. So minimum wage is the wage that we use. If Nick had a lot of experience as a dog trainer or used to walk dogs for a living, then we might use a higher wage, but typically and definitely the default for anyone working in kind is going to be minimum wage. So Nick's in kind work is valued at 1 hour of dog walking times $7.25, which is the current minimum wage. So it's going to be $7.25 per month. That's going to be what's on his budget. Okay, let's have another example. Mary's neighbor Shay works out of town 2 days a week. Mary collects Shay's mail, waters his plants once a week for a total of 50 minutes a month. And in exchange for that in-kind work, Shay gives Mary a coupon for a free sandwich at a restaurant once a month. So Mary's in-kind work is valued at an hour because we're rounding up from 50 minutes. And we multiply that by minimum wage. And so Mary's in-kind work is going to be valued at $7.25. And I just wanted to give these examples because I know there's been some confusion all the way around about, is it what the person does for work, or is it what the thing of value that's given to them? You know, what is what's the calculation? So this is the calculation. I hope that's helpful to everybody.
And
okay.
There were two questions that came in. So the first question was, and this form works universally with each consortium, or each one has their own?
No, this is a state form. So I have asked them to destroy all of their forms.
Okay, thank you. And then the other one that came in was asking, is a gift card for work in kind considered cash?
Oh, this is a good question. Mark, that's an excellent question. I just need to think about that, and I'm not going to be able to process it that quickly. I'm sorry about that. Because I kind of feel like that would be cash. So, but it's a good question, and it might depend on I need to think about that. So we're gonna take that question. I love it when people give questions that I have never thought of before. So that's the beauty of this. We're gonna all learn from each other. So I'll take that back, and I know we're gonna do a Q&A from this, and we will absolutely answer it. So thank you for that question. I appreciate it. Okay, Jenny, does that look like?
Yes, thank you.
All right. So now let's talk about the final way that a member can meet the work requirement. This is the Health and Employment Counseling Program. We call it HEC. And it's a program that's certified by DHS, and it helps members reach employment goals by approving activities in a plan, and the plan is designed to help the member become employed. Excuse me. HEC participation can occur for up to 9 months, and it can also have a 3-month extension. So a MAPP member could participate in HEC for a total of 12 months if they requested an extension and they were approved for that extension. So there's a time limit on it. So let's say that I'm a MAPP member and I'm participating in HEC, and I did either 9 months or 12 months. And at that point where my time is around, we'll say 12 months, my time is out, I have to stop. I have to stop participating in HEC. So it really is a temporary measure. We hope that the plan that's written up and the activities that someone does during their HEC participation will help them find a job. But even if I don't find a job, let's say I was not able to find a job, I would not be able to use HEC at the end of that 12 months for another 6 months. So I think that's important to remember, that HEC is not an ongoing way to meet the work requirement. There is a time limit. So not only is there a time limit on I have no more than 12 in my first HEC period, if I wait 6 months and then do a second HEC period, let's say I did 12 months on that one, that's it for me for HEC for 5 years. So it's very time limited, and I think it's been a pretty helpful plan. I've talked a lot to the HEC coordinator, who is a delightful person, but it's time. I think it's just important for everybody to make sure that members understand that they absolutely, yes, HEC is a way to meet the work requirement, but it is time limited. And I'm not talking about future time limited things. I'm just using that as a phrase. So there's a time limit on the amount of time you can meet your work requirement in MAPP using HEC. Okay.
And there was a question that came in that asked, is this in conjunction with DVR, so referring to the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, or separate? And if separate, can they be utilized at the same time?
Yeah, so it would be, it would not, it would, DVR work would have to be a part of HEC for us to count that as a work requirement. So HEC is the avenue to meet the work requirement, but absolutely working with DVR, the member is working with DVR, they can get help from DVR to fill out their HEC plan, and that absolutely all fits together. And I'm about to talk, just talking, let me back up, sorry, since we're talking about HEC. Also, the FSET that people sometimes do with food share, the food share employment and training program, that also could be potentially utilized, depending on what the person's doing, that could potentially be utilized. But you wouldn't be meeting the work requirement through FSET, you'd be meeting it through HEC, and the FSET work that a person was doing would be in their HEC plan. So I hope that helps. I think that was from Crystal.
Yes, and there was 2 more that came in. And so one was kind of a hypothetical example of Robert reports that he watches his roommate's dog while she works 30 hours a week. This would then be counted as 870 a month. This would impact his premium because it increases his income so much, correct?
Oh, okay. So Yes, the money would impact his premium. That's absolutely right. But I just want to remind everybody that we've changed premium calculations a lot. So absolutely, any income you get is going to be looked at in the premium calculation. If your income is well, we're going to talk about that in a minute. So let's hold on to that one if you don't mind. But yes, if he's making it 70, I didn't check your math in my head. So if he's making it 70 a month in kind value, then that is going to be considered when we look at whether or not he pays a premium and his premium calculation. That's right. Jenny, I see this other question. I am unfamiliar with SERS. I'm sorry. So maybe we could just take that back. Okay, I'm going to go forward. Okay, so now we're at financial eligibility requirements, and I'm just going to go through these pretty quickly. So we have an adjusted family income. So this is trying to become eligible for MAPP. So we're not talking about premiums right now, talking about trying to get into the MAPP program. Adjusted family income of 250% FPL or less for the fiscal test group size. Adjusted income includes spouse's income, all the allowed expenses, if the applicant and spouse are living together. And then the fiscal test group size includes applicant or member, spouse, if living together, minor, natural and adopted children. It doesn't include stepchildren in that fiscal test group size. So I just wanted to explain a little bit about the fiscal test group size. Okay. And then I do see we've got a chat. I think I'll just keep going, Jenny, and then we can get to some of those questions maybe at the end. Does that seem
Sure.
okay? So financial eligibility requirements for assets, counted assets, 15,000 or less. But for assets, only the applicant or member's assets are counted. So while we count your spouse's income if you're living together, we do not count your spouse's assets. One vehicle isn't counted. Member's home is not counted. Excuse me. Independence accounts, which I'll talk about in a little bit, they are exempt. I'm going to talk about right now. Independence accounts explained. Excuse me. Oh, Crystal, I do see. So is there a dollar amount set for home or vehicles? There, for MAPP, there is not. Independence accounts, there is not for this program. There is a dollar amount for a home if a person wants long-term care. Okay, and I'm not going to get into that right now because that's not MAPP specifically. So independence accounts explained. Independence accounts are financial accounts that are not counted as assets toward the MAPP asset limit of 15,000. They allow members to save money without losing MAPP coverage, and a member can contribute up to 50% of annual gross earnings, excuse me, without a penalty of any kind. All right, now, this is one of those topics I want to explain a little bit because I think it's very tricky and I think we've had a lot of confusion in the past. And so I think it's important. I would like to see a lot more members taking advantage, if they can, of independence accounts. So I want to make sure everybody has a good understanding. I want to pause for a second on this slide and say, we tried to really overhaul our policy handbook so it would be easier to understand independence accounts. We also really tried to explain it as well as we could in the MAPP consumer guide, which has been completely overhauled. I think it had not been overhauled since 2009. So we've overhauled that, and that's about to be published. Actually, that'll be published. Let me just think for a second. I think around the middle of the month. I think actually in about a week or so. So that's another place you can get more information, both the handbook, the MEH, and the MAPP consumer guide once it comes out. But I want to go through these right now since we're all here together. So there are two types of independence accounts. We have non-retirement accounts. So that's a savings account, checking account, money market, mutual fund thing opens. And then we have retirement accounts, and that's IRAs, Roth IRAs, or any kind of employment-sponsored pension, any kind of employment-sponsored retirement account. And those two types of independence accounts have different rules. All right, so we're going to focus right now on the non-retirement independence accounts. These cannot be opened until the person is a MAPP member. Crystal, these do not include special needs account. These are separate. So independence accounts cannot be opened. So I cannot, let's say that I am applying for MAPP and I have this old savings account. I don't use it. There's a buck in it or $5 or whatever in it. I don't use it. And I decide, well, maybe I could, I'll just turn that into an independence account once I get my notice of decision that tells me I'm in MAPP. No, I cannot. I cannot open an independence account until after I know that I'm a MAPP member. But just wanted to make that clear, and that's actually an admin code. And then once I know I'm a MAPP member, I would then open the account, and then I would register it with the Income Maintenance Agency. And we have a form, I have it on the slide there, it's 10121. And just a tip for everybody, if you know the form number of any form that you're looking for, that's the best way to do a search in our DHS forms library. I find that sometimes it gets a little hung up on words because maybe I put a hyphen in that wasn't there, or maybe I spelled out a word and unbeknownst to me, there was an acronym that was used. So I think if you happen to know the number, let's say you got a copy of it and you're trying to look it up so you can send it to somebody over email, the quickest way to do that is just plug the number into that search engine. Okay, so I'm going to register my newly opened, after I found out I was a member, independence account. Using that form, I'm going to register it right away after I open it. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. There's a question, is there a limit in the total assets that can be saved in the independence account? So the limit is that you cannot deposit more into the account than 50% of what your earned income is every year. So if you're doing, let's say that your earned income is in kind, you would need to base how much you put into that account on 50% of what you made in the in-kind value of the in-kind income. If you work for somebody else and you get a paycheck, you base that on half of it. And we say annually, but let me just explain, because we are dealing with we're really dealing with certification periods. So a recertification period, a renewal period is 12 months, and it would be the 12 months in that certification period. So the 50% of what I made in that certification period, that's the limit on what I can deposit. If I deposit more, then I'm going to have a penalty added to my premium. Okay, so non-retirement independence accounts continued. Deposits can be made, earned or unearned. So we're not tracking where the money came from. If you didn't have anything left over from your earned income this month, you had some left over. I mean, it's usually all joined, but you had some left over from, let's say you get Social Security, you have some left over from that. You can absolutely put that in. But what we're saying is that the 50% is not based on your unearned, it's based on the earned. And then I just want to mention, so independence accounts are really for deposits from your earnings. We do allow also unearned income because it's mixed income, but they're not for deposits for your assets. So if for example, a member inherited money, that money needs to find a different place. You need to find a different place for that. It's not to be deposited into your independence account. A little bit more on non-retirement independence accounts. I hope you all find this helpful. So members can only make deposits during a time period that they are eligible for MAPP. All right. So MAPP members become eligible for another form of Medicaid, even temporarily. While they're not eligible for MAPP, they cannot make deposits into this account. Again, non-retirement account. So I'm a MAPP member. I become a member. I open a savings account. I register it as an independence account. I'm putting money in it. And then let's say that I let's say I lose my job and I become eligible for a deductible instead of MAPP for a little while. While I'm eligible for, cannot make deposits into this independence account that I created. Okay, now this is a different rule than retirement. So these are non-retirement accounts. So I want to make that really, really clear. And that's because independence accounts have to be kept separate. Independence accounts are they're non-retirement accounts. They're entirely exempt, right? We exempt them. And we cannot mix our non-exempt or monies with our exempt monies when it's a non-retirement type of independence account. All right, so if I make the mistake of making deposits into that, the whole account is no longer an independence account. So I just wanted to just caution folks on that, okay? So I see an independence account related question. Oh, Crystal, this is a great question. So Crystal says, when you become eligible for MAPP again, would an old MAPP independence account still be able to be used, or would you have to open a new one? Crystal, that's a great question. No, you can absolutely use that old one. Absolutely. So it's still an independence account, and once you become eligible for MAPP again, you can use an independence account, even if it was an old one, because you legitimately opened that when you were a MAPP member. So you could absolutely use that old one. Yeah, that's a great question. Okay. All right, so then just a few more things. Members need to be the sole owner of the independence account. They have to be kept separate. That's really critical from all other assets. And again, we just said this, but members cannot deposit more than 50% of their total annual gross earned income over a 12-month period. Again, that 12-month period is your certification period. It's not January to December into the account. If they do, they're going to face a penalty. All right, so we're going to switch from non-retirement independence accounts, which have a set of rules, to retirement accounts that have a different set of rules. All right, so retirement accounts are typically open prior to the member becoming eligible for MAPP. I have a retirement account that is part of my employee package, or I'm self-employed and I opened an IRA to try to save money, or a Roth or something. And that's already opened. I'm already saving money on that. Retirement accounts can be considered independence accounts, even if the member or the member's employer makes contribution to the account when the member's not eligible for MAPP. And I think one of the reasons this was decided is because, you have a retirement account, your employer is hopefully depositing into that. You were depositing into that from your earnings, taking advantage maybe even of pre-tax dollars, and we're not going to ask you to not do that. We're not going to somehow ask your employer to not do that. So retirement accounts are different than the non-retirement accounts for independence accounts. They can be open before, they do still need to be registered. They can be open before I was a MAPP member, and they can be contributed to while I'm not a MAPP member if I close for some reason and become eligible for, let's say a deductible. But only the contributions that were made to that account while the member was eligible for MAPP are exempt. So anything, all the stuff that I contributed, my employer contributed before I was a MAPP member, that is not exempt. That's a countable asset. And let's say I'm in MAPP for 2 or 3 years, and then I'm open for a deductible, or maybe I'm open for waiver Medicaid. Everything, if anything is put into that after, that's also not exempt. Only the contributions while I was a MAPP member are exempt. I think people are pretty familiar with the retirement accounts and independence accounts. All right, so now, and I don't see any new questions about independence accounts. I'm going to go on to policy changes, what everybody's been waiting for, the excitement. Okay, here's a summary of our policy changes. So we have a brand new income deduction. It's out of pocket medical and remedial expenses. That includes long-term care expenses. Those expenses that are over $500 a month are deducted before comparing the member's income to 250% of the federal poverty level. We also have a new premium calculation. This is the really exciting one. All members with gross income over 100% FPL for a group of one, they're going to pay a premium of $25 plus 3% of their income that is over 100% FPL. Great detail, well, some detail in a few minutes on that one. And then independence accounts, which we just talked about, the new exciting thing about independence accounts, this is really exciting, is that now these accounts are going to be exempt for all forms of Medicaid. So before, somebody could be a MAPP member, they could be taking advantage of the independence accounts, which we encourage. And then let's say they would like to retire, and then perhaps they're opening for waiver Medicaid. Well, we had to count their independence accounts. So this exciting news. All right, so I'm going to go into detail for all of these. I just want to see a quick, does a Medicare premium count as a medical cost? It does, it does. So premiums, we have not changed our definition of medical or remedial expenses. We just have added this income deduction right here that is when you're trying to become eligible for MAPP, if you have expenses in excess of $500 that are out of pocket, and you can verify they're out of pocket, then we will allow that expense before we look at your income. All right, so a member with only $500 would not get the deduction. It has to be over $500. These can include expenses of the member or the spouse, but they have to be out of pocket. And if MAPP begins to pay these expenses, the member has to report that change within 10 days. Now they're no longer an expense. And so it's possible that person, if what was making that person income eligible was that large expense, if Medicaid starts to pay it, they might no longer be eligible. Okay, so I think I'm going to go into a little more detail on this one. Oh, I am not. Do we have questions on that? I want to make sure that's really clear. So I'd like to pause for a second and see if anyone has a question on that. I know y'all are familiar with med remedials because we've always looked at them for premiums. Okay. All right, I'll keep going. Okay, policy changes. So premiums, members with gross income at or below 100% FPL for group of one, they're not going to pay a premium. Members with gross income over 100% FPL, they will pay a premium. And here's the basic calculation. Premiums are 3% of the member's adjusted income that is over 100% FPL, plus $25. Okay, and I want to mention that there were, I think people may have been aware of some other rules that were floated around, but these are the new rules for the premiums. If a member's gross income is over 100% FPL for group of one, but the adjusted income is under 100% FPL, the member still will be required to pay the $25 premium. So when we go into, do I have to pay a premium? I'm looking at my income only. I'm comparing my gross income with 100% FPL for one person. If it is over that, I am paying a premium. Might only be $25, but I am paying a premium. Okay, now, along with our premium changes, we do have temporary waiver of premium payment. So I want to go into this. This is brand new. This has not existed before. So I will tell y'all about it and then to go into some details with it and just see if we had questions about it. So members can apply for a temporary waiver of their premium due to an unusual situation that's causing a temporary financial hardship. These I'm going to call these waivers. This does not have to do with waiver Medicaid, home community-based waivers. All right, so I probably should use a different word, but anyway. So this waiver of premium payment, now called waivers at the moment. So waivers can be 3 months. They can be granted for 1 month. They can be granted up to no more than 12 months. And that 12 months would include any backdating. And if I have a waiver that's shorter than 12 months and my circumstance is extended, I can absolutely ask for an extension on that waiver. It just can't be more than 12 months for the same hardship reason. Okay. Let me go back. I just want to see if we have any questions on that. I want to let y'all know that we do have a form for this. The policy is, of course, spelled out in the MEH, Medicaid Eligibility Handbook. Also talked about, and I saw one just pop up, a question. Also talked about in the MAPP Consumer Guide, which again is soon to be published. Okay, so we've got a question. If a customer is just over 250% FPL and has, for example, 10,000 in out-of-pocket medical expenses, will those medical expenses be prorated over the certification period? Are they used to get the customer just under the 250% FPL or to get the customer under 100% FPL so they don't have a premium? So will be the customer's choice on how these medical expenses are prorated. So this is an excellent question. And I will say that I had some advocate colleagues ask me about this, and I'm working on this. So I want to say a couple things. We have not changed how we can and can't do medical remedial expenses. So the prorating of those. I also want to say it doesn't matter what you have in expenses. Expenses are not used when we look at the 100% FPL. It is your gross income, and we don't look at it's not your adjusted. We absolutely look at your adjusted income once we're calculating your premium, but it's your gross income we're looking at when we look at, is Michelle over or under or at 100% FPL for a group of one? It's my gross income. We're looking at the medical remedial expenses, are you under that? So in this example, that person, I'm sure would end up paying a premium. But when you look to calculate the premium, the medical remedial expenses, as they do now, as they do when we were paying premiums, they would come down. They would bring it down. So this person might absolutely owe $25, but they would be paying at least $25. And then in the Q&A that we end up doing, we will talk more about prorating. I think those are good questions, and those are questions we hadn't addressed because we're not changing anything with that. But I want to be able to give people a good handle on that. So thank you for that question. And then Sheila Riley, what constitutes a hardship? So going back to this temporary waiver, a hardship could be many, many things. Could be financial hardship. I own a home, I have to replace my roof. I own a home and a car, and I have to use the car to get to work, and I have to replace my car. I am living with a partner. I experience domestic violence. I have to leave. I don't have access to things. That could be a hardship. I'm a victim of a crime of some kind, another kind of crime, like I'm a victim of assault and have to spend some time in the hospital, and there are lots of things that go along with that. That could be a hardship. So there are lots of examples of hardship. Hope that list helps. The MEH has been updated. It was updated, I think, last week or so. So there is a very lengthy list of examples, not limited to, but examples of a hardship in there. And so if you go look at that, I think that you'll get a lot of examples and a lot of ways to understand that. Oh, that was a good question. Okay, Sue Lane. So I'm going to just look at another question. So what if a person gets sick, let's say cancer, and can't work for longer than 6 months? So a person has terminal cancer, doing well at enrollment, but later gets very ill, unable to perform their work requirement or participate in HEC. So that's a great question. We do have a temporary work requirement exemption, and that's for, there are rules associated with that. I'm not going to remember every rule in my head. I'm sorry about that. But as long as you are a member for a certain period of time, and I think it's 6 months, but do not hold me to that. I would have to look it up. So I'm a member, I'm doing okay, I'm working, and let's say a year later, I've had cancer, the cancer makes me quite ill, I can't work. There is a temporary work exemption that the person could apply for, and if granted, then they would not have to meet the work requirement for the exemption period. So that's a long-standing, that's not a new policy, that's long-standing. And again, I would have to look up the rules, but the rules are in the handbook. And I like to think they're pretty clear. So you can definitely take a look at that. And there's a form to apply for that. Okay. Yeah, you're welcome, Sue. Jackie, will the member have to pay back premiums after the hardship period? So that's a great question. So let me just gather my thoughts. I'm sorry. So a member applies for a hardship. It can go back, right? So let's say that I had something catastrophic happen or some kind of hardship happen, and I did not pay my premium. And let's say and we're going to talk about the RRP changes, but let's say I go into an RRP. Now I have the wherewithal or somebody's helping me, and I apply for a temporary waiver of the premium payment. I can backdate that up to 3 months to cover that. But I think you're asking when you say, Jackie, you're asking like if I go into an RRP, would I have to pay it back? So when if I would like to become eligible during the RRP, something has to pay the premium. So either there have to be waived by the temporary waiver of premium payment, or I have to pay the back premium. So something has to cover the premiums, but it isn't necessarily me paying it. It could be that I ask for a back date on this waiver, with this waiver. So I hope that answers that question. I'm going to pause and just see if anybody else has anything. Questions at the end too, because I am somewhat near the end. All right. Okay, policy changes, RRP. Restrictive re-enrollment periods, RRPs, are decreased to 3 months. We're all happy about this. I'm so thrilled with this change. So I know all y'all know that our restrictive re-enrollment policy for MAPP was a lot, and now it is only 3 months. So let's talk about that change. RRPs begin the month after the missing payment month. So if a member misses a February payment was due 2/10, we know that our payments are due on the 10th, then the RRP would be from March 1st to May 31st. All right, so March, April, May, 3 months. A member can remedy an RRP by paying the premiums due, being granted a temporary premium waiver, or a combination of the two of those. And we just talked about that a second ago. So let's talk more about remedying the RRP, because I want everybody to understand this, because it is different than it was before. All right, so a member can get benefits again by doing any of the following. They can pay the premiums that were due during the RRP period. Okay, that's one way. If they are no longer subject to a premium during the RRP. So let's say someone is granted a temporary premium waiver. So that has waived my premiums. I'm not subject to premiums anymore. That will start my eligibility again. Or something has happened and my income is below 100% FPL, gross income, 100% FPL. That means I don't have a MAPP premium, and that means that my RRP ends. All right, so I'm remedying that. Also, you absolutely can wait till the end of the RRP and re-request MAPP. And again, that RRP is only 3 months. So it's no longer that 6-month time frame. Okay. So I'm gonna pause on, because the RRP is such a big change. I just want to see if anybody has a question. If any of you are familiar at all with the, oh, that's a good question, Mark. I see your question. If anybody's familiar with the premiums for children, it's for Badger Care Plus children. It's very similar to that. If you're familiar with that. But we also have, of course, rewritten this section of the handbook. We also talk about this in the MAPP Consumer Guide. Okay, and Mark asks, are there proof documents required for waiver approval? Yes, you have to. So our verification, you do have to verify the hardship, and our verification is the same as it always is. Written documentation, collateral contact, best information available. So that the verification policy hasn't changed, but you do have to verify it somehow to get a waiver approval. Okay, thanks, Mark, for that question. And Aaron, do even those at 101 to 149% who had no premium before and are using the in-kind work, yes, have to pay the $25 premium now? Yes, anybody who is, at 101 to whatever, is going to have to pay the premium, and that's a lot of new people paying premiums. You're absolutely right. I see what you're saying, Aaron. It's a lot of new people. I will say that the good news is that initially we thought that everybody, even members under 100% FPL, were going to be required to pay at least $25. So I feel like it's an improvement, a change in that, and I'm glad for that change. But yes, you're absolutely right. There will be a lot of members, particularly in-kind, folks who are using in-kind, that will have to pay a premium, and they have not had to pay one before. So that's a great question, and it's absolutely true. Okay, I don't see anything else. Okay. All right. So we talked at length about independence accounts. We're going to talk a little bit more about them. Independence accounts balances will be exempt under all categories of EBD, Medicaid, all SSI-related Medicaid, MAPP, waiver, MA, institutional, and even the Medicaid savings programs. So no longer does someone have to worry about leaving the MAPP program because they're going to be over assets for every other program we have. If you would like to retire and leave that program and become eligible maybe for a deductible or something, that independence account is not going to hold you back. So I think that's really good news for everybody who takes advantage of those accounts. So an example, a member moves from MAPP to waiver Medicaid, the independence account still exempt. But again, just remember, the member cannot make any deposits into a non-retirement independence account, or the whole account is countable, because if it's not separate money, it's not an independence account for those non-retirement accounts. Okay. Oh, I'm at the end. Okay. So Jenny, I think that we can, so here's our email address. If you have questions, I don't know about everybody else, but I often, especially because you haven't gotten the materials yet, so maybe you'll think about this presentation and see the materials and have some questions when you look at the materials. And absolutely, please, I encourage you to email this email address, and we have takes care of this email address, and she will make sure the questions that I need to answer get to me. So I encourage you to use that. But I also would say let's open the floor. Jenny, if that's okay, to questions right now.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the way I'm going to do it, Michelle, is when I'm speaking, I'll mute you and then vice versa, so we don't get any feedback. So I'll ask the question and then I'll kind of pause for you to answer. So the first one that came in says, so only retirement independence accounts are exempt under other MA programs?
No, all independence accounts are exempt under other MA programs. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wonder if I misspoke. So all independence accounts are exempt under all MA programs. It's just that the non-retirement accounts can only have deposits made while the person is a member of MAPP. And for our retirement account retirement-related independence accounts, we know there might be deposits, happening there when a person is no longer a MAPP member. Those deposits will be counted as assets, but the chunk that is defined as an independence account, which is the entire account for non-retirement, or the portion of the retirement account that was deposited while the person was a MAPP member, That's what's exempt for all EBD healthcare programs.
Thank you for that. And then the next one is, do Native Americans need to pay the $25 monthly premium?
There is no Native American related exemption for MAPP premiums. So yes.
And the next one is there a form to calculate premiums?
There is a form to calculate premiums, and it's in the forms library. I'm of course not going to remember the number. I should just list all my forms out. I'm sorry about that. But it's also in the handbook. And if you go to the Medicaid eligibility handbook, in the, trying to think, it's in the appendix, it's under worksheets. If you click on worksheets, they're on the left-hand corner, it will show you the worksheets, and the MAPP premium calculation is, that form is linked there. Also, I think you could, I just don't know what, if you could put MAPP premium in the search engine. And if that didn't work, you could put purchase in the search engine, and that would probably make it come up.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of put out the offer as well as because somebody also just asked, can we get a copy of these slides? So not only related to the slides, but other materials Michelle had referenced or shared with us. So myself, in case if you joined late, I'm Jenny Appleby. I'm with Covering Wisconsin and the Milwaukee Enrollment Network. So after this presentation today, everybody who had joined on the computer, I have your email address. I will send out a copy of the slides and materials. If you joined by phone, go ahead and just shoot me an email, whether that's for the presentation slides or if there's something, some sort of form you can't find. You know, I'm in contact with Maciel Gomez, who is our Southeast Wisconsin liaison from DHS, as well as Michelle. So if there's something you can't find, just please feel free to reach out to me and I'll try to help find that. And my email address is jappleby, which is APPLEBY at wisc.edu. So then the next question is, can an insurance agent broker use this email to ask questions when we're trying to assist clients in enrolling with MAPP or limited to economic support personnel? So they would be referencing, I believe, this email address that's up on the screen right now.
Oh, sure, sure. Really anybody can use this. And if we are not able to answer the question, we will let you know that. But absolutely, you can use it, that email address. Yeah. Now I'm going to have 500 emails probably, which is great. Which is great.
And to clarify, are the slides okay to share with others?
I think so. I guess let's see. Maybe we should double check. But I mean, they were approved for this.
Yes, they're open to the public. They've been approved. However, I believe Sue was the one that asked the question. If there's anything specific, Sue, if there's another group that we should go ahead and speak to, let us know in more detail, and perhaps we could cater the information best to their interest.
But as an example, she said, you know, to the staff, absolutely feel free to share these with colleagues who weren't able to attend today. And then one more question I see coming in is, can you tell me where to find policy on proof documentation for waivers, especially those fleeing domestic violence, which is difficult to prove?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's a very good question. Our verification policies are in the handbook. The fact that we require verification or proof of the hardship, it is a mandatory verification, but our verification policies have not changed, and so it could be for someone who, let's say I am going into the hospital and that's my, hardship. You know, maybe I'm going to provide written verification, but in the example that you gave us of someone who is fleeing domestic violence, we could take collateral contact. Collateral contact means that someone else tells us about it. So if that person is working with a shelter or working with social worker or working with a police officer or working with an advocate that and gave them permission, they could absolutely provide verbal proof to an income maintenance agency. So I think there are lots of, we're not saying there must be written proof. We're not locking it down to any one kind of proof for any hardship. So someone, I don't know, so let's say a police officer saying to income maintenance, this person is experiencing domestic violence and is fleeing that would be proof. So I think, yeah, I think it's a good question. We don't have to know details. We just need to know that we need somebody to verify that something is happening. So, I'm sorry, Jenny. Let's say I was going in the hospital. We don't need to know your diagnosis. We just need to know, yep, this person is going into the hospital for this amount of time, or is going through physical therapy for this or something for this amount of time. So we're trying to not be invasive, but still, make sure we have some kind of verification.
Thank you. So one more question I see is, when premiums are calculated, is 100% FPL for household size?
It is for a group of one. So with eligibility, we all know we are looking at an FPL for your group size, and I explained the group size that stepchildren are not counted, but who's counted. For a premium, we're only looking at your income, and so we're looking at an FPL for a group of one. And I was going to quote how much that is. I think it's one of those 1,063.33, but I don't know for sure. You'd have to look that up. But right now, it's about that, give or take. Gosh, I just looked at that before. Anyway, so it's a group of one. That's an excellent question. We've clarified that now on the form to calculate a premium and the handbook. Thanks to you know who you are if you're on here. Thanks to an advocate who shot me an email. We've made that very clear now in the handbook too. I'm sorry that wasn't clear for those of you who saw that.
Well, with that, I don't see any further questions coming in. You all see the email address on the screen, so feel free to reach out if anything else comes up. Michelle, in just a moment, I'll give you one last moment in case you have anything else. There is one more question actually that came in now. The question was, so the program is no longer looking at a couple's income.
Eligibility, we are looking at a couple's income, and we're looking at the fiscal test group size and that I talked about before. And so when you get these slides, it talks about who's in that, right? So it's a married couple if they're living together, and then it tells you which children would be considered in that group. For a premium, we are only looking at the member's income, and because we are only looking at the member's income, we are looking at a group of one, 100% FPL group of one. That's both to compare to see, am I paying a premium? Am I not? And then also in the calculation, when we're looking at 3% of the adjusted income, 3% of the adjusted income that is over 100% FPL, it's also a group of one. So I see a bunch of questions. Jenny, I'm just going to let you tell me. Janisha,
Michelle, when they brought up SER, I believe it's a community-based program which is run by the counties, and that might be one of the reasons why it wasn't familiar to you. Oh, you're muted, hon.
Okay. I think that was in relation to, would that be, could you use that as a HEC program? And I just, because I don't know anything about it, I don't know if you could, but I would encourage anybody who would like to use HEC participation as a way to temporarily meet the work requirement. Again, the HEC coordinator is a wonderful, helpful person. Her name is Michelle, and it's not me. And she is, she absolutely is happy to talk to a member or an applicant about filling out their plan and if that program could meet it. I know that many parts of an FSET plan could meet HEC. I know that many parts of a DVR plan could meet HEC. I just am not, if I'm not familiar with one, I don't want to say that it would, but she could absolutely tell you. Just mainly volunteer will not work, you're not trying to get a volunteer job. You're trying to get an in-kind job or self-employment or employment.
Thank you. And I wanted to address something because I at least had one comment that was just saying that maybe they missed some answers to some of your questions. So we're of course dealing with my internet, Michelle's internet, possibly your own internet that you're on as well. So sometimes we're not exactly sure which of those is causing the issue, but the recording should capture most of it if there wasn't a system-wide issue. Otherwise, again, if you have a question that you feel like you didn't catch the answer to, feel free to email or reach out to me. I will go ahead and read a couple of the last ones that came in. So one of them, just reiterating, I believe you already answered this, but I'll let you answer it again because somebody did ask it again, of do Native Americans need to pay the $25 monthly premium?
Yes, there is no Native American related exemption from paying the MAPP premium.
Thank you. And then do you know when premiums will be collected?
Sure, we're not going to be charging premiums until, so right now, if the public health emergency ends when it's supposed to end, which right now it's scheduled to end towards the end of October, like the 20-something. If that happens, then we would not be collecting premiums until January. If it's extended, then the premium charging would also be extended. I'm sorry, I didn't say that well. The premium suspension would also be extended.
And then the question was, as we were kind of looking at that, what do you look at for a couple versus an individual? This question was, are assets only individual?
Yeah, absolutely. Assets, we only look at the applicant or member's assets.
And then the new premium policy, just to reiterate, will not start until after January 1st, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's in the handbook now because if we were collecting premiums, that would be, those rules would be, the new policies would be the rules. But since we're not collecting premiums, there's just, we're just not collecting. The policy right now is we're not charging premiums. So yes, those will, when we once again charge premiums, the new rules will be the rules we use. Goodbye to the old rules.
Does MAPP cover eye and dental?
I do not know the answer to that question. That's a question for the Forward Health staff. I don't have their number. Sorry.
Is the work exception until January 1st?
I'm thinking, sorry. The work exception, that's a good question. It is not until January 1st right now. It is, I believe it is until December 1st right now, but everyone will get a letter telling them that the public health emergency related policies, the temporary policies, including that work exemption, including premium suspension, every member will get a letter about those ending and regular policies continuing at least a month before work exemption and suspension of premiums ends. So if that if people have to start meeting the work requirement again in December, let's say, they will get a letter at least a month before that letting them know that.
Thank you. And one of our participants had answered the question for, does MAPP cover eye and dental? And this participant had said it does, because it's the same as the Medicaid coverage. So, we're always happy to follow up with stuff like that if you needed, us to look at a handbook or something like that. But thank you for the respondent who said that it does. It's the same as Medicaid coverage. And then another question, will the consumer guide be updated?
Absolutely, it is updated. It has been completely rewritten, and I hope it's good now. We tried really hard to make it much better, and it explains all the new policies. It will be published in I think mid-month this month or towards the end of the month, it's definitely overhauled. And again, I think it has not been overhauled since like 2012 or 2009 or something. So I think it will be a real asset to people. And also, I want to let everybody know that we are going to, once the public health emergency ends and things go back to normal, we've automated our system to send the MAPP consumer guide out to all members about once a year. So they'll have a new copy every year. And I'm really glad that nobody has to go download it or get a friend to print it or whatever. They'll get one mailed to them.
Great. Another question, are premiums under normal circumstances imposed if an individual is on a medical related work exemption?
Premiums are imposed based separately. So premiums are imposed under normal circumstances based on your income, not based on how you're meeting the work requirement or not meeting or not meeting the work requirement. So it's based on your income specifically. Did that answer it?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. So with that, I think that we will conclude today's presentation. So thank you very much to Michelle. We've had a lot of comments just in the chat box as well, just saying thank you, great information, very informative, just a lot of expertise that you've shared with us today. So thank you. I think we truly found the expert for this presentation. So with that, I'll just kind of turn it over to you for any final comments, Michelle.
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much. I'm really glad that y'all found it helpful. I really enjoy sharing the information about our programs with anybody. So I appreciate this opportunity, and I'm glad you found it helpful. And again, so let's just remember that Jenny's going to send you some materials, and the ops memo is already out there, but she's also going to send that to you. MAPP Consumer Guide will be available very soon. And you have this email address now if you have questions. And I just really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you everybody for joining. Take care.